recording. All right. Thank you. Anybody else need any attendance sheet? All right.
Yes.
Yeah. Shoot. All right. That's a lot of people not here today. So, let's talk about the project first. Under content, lip sync final. Some of you, hopefully you've all already read this, right? We are doing a lip sync animation. Now, this is an interesting project because really it's just the same thing as the project we just now finished, except we're adding audio, right? And when we add audio, that gives us some things that we have to work around, right? You have to make creative, actually more creative choices when you have limitations. And the limitations we're putting on here is audio. And audio comes with it timing, right? You can't change how long it takes a character to say a line. It comes with issues of intensity. Like, is your character really, really intensely saying something and you're animating it like this and it's not convincing, right? It also comes with the challenges of having to make sure your character adheres to what that audio sounds like, right? There's a lot of extra elements to this that are very important. So verbal communication is far more complex than simply the words coming out of your mouth. The body acting carries the majority of the message we're communicating. The source audio requires you to adhere to a lot of preset timing and intensity. Adding well-executed face animation on top of that will only accentuate the performance. Everybody remember the 12 principles? Yeah. Facial animation is not primary action. It is secondary action. The primary action is what your character is doing, the body acting.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. Facial animation just adds to that. Right? Because if somebody was wearing a ninja mask, right? I mean, like think the Spider-Verse movie. Half of the Spider-Man scenes, he's wearing a mask. You don't actually see his mouth moving, right? You still understood it. And you understood the emotions. So when we add this audio to it, we are just adding secondary action that adds to the acting. And what we've really added is an extra element of restriction, and a lot of people don't like that word, but restriction actually forces you to make more creative decisions than freedom does. Like if you just have a free choice to do whatever you want, like more than likely, that's a lot harder to choose something creative. Right? When you have some restrictions, then you have to work around them and make hard decisions. So using any human rig, so the character has to have a face, and an audio clip from a live action film or TV source, create a short lip sync animation of a single character speaking a line of dialogue. The most, or monologue, it's a line of audio. Dialogue usually means that there's more than one character. You can have a second character, just not on screen. Okay, so your character could be having a conversation with somebody off screen if you need them to. However, if that's what you choose to do, the character that is on screen should be the one doing most of the talking, right? The other character is probably just agreeing or setting them up for something. The most effective audio clips show the character going through a change of emotion, right? Like surprise, confusion, take an emotion. If you can apply it to that audio clip, that's going to be much more successful than just choosing a line that you thought was funny. Actually, that's almost like the easy way of doing it, right? If you choose a line that you think is funny, you get that extra little bonus of people laughing at it. But then after they laugh at it, they assess the animation and realize that all it is a mouth moving telling a joke, right? And that's not that much proof that you are a good animator. So showing that you can make a character go through a series of emotions that aligns with that audio track, that's what you're going to be selling as your animation skills. So from my experience, you may be able to prove me wrong, but from my experience, audio clips that do not work well podcasts, YouTube celebrities, audio from animations. So if this came from another animation, you're just going to get compared to that. YouTube celebrities, like it's kind of like doing something with a stand-up comedian. Like unless you've been listening to the entire joke or the whole section, really all you got was some words with like some emotion in it, and like it's not crafted. It's just like jumping into a conversation anywhere. Like I've seen several people do those, and I've usually never understood the context. So be careful with that one. I'm not saying it's completely out of the deal. The other thing is it also usually sounds like it was recorded outside of a studio. It's got a little bit of echo or like clacking noises, not as clear pronunciation or something like that. So people will be confused about what did they say, and you just don't want to add any extra hurdles in front of people. I don't know if I've actually said this out loud. I'm actually broadcasting this on WebEx as well. What we're going to be doing on screen here in a few minutes, you'll probably want that. So, other things, audio from games, just because it's the same with animation. Like people will recognize, oh, that's a character from Overwatch or whatever, and then they will just compare you to that character animation from Overwatch. Audio of yourself talking, like you can try it, but usually you're not as good of an actor as Tom Hanks, or you're not as, usually, I don't want to just say, but like there's just so much good stuff out there. Like you really, like if you're going to do this, like hopefully you have some acting experience and you're really putting some acting in this. It's not just one reading of the line and being done. So like think about that one and like run that one by me a little bit. So how many of you picked out your 3 lines? All right, 4 people. Well, you're going to need them before next class period. So the animation should not exceed 10 seconds. I would expect the average length to be about 5 to 7 seconds long. You'll turn in a rendered video, MP4 compression, or H.264 compression. And the project is also eligible for animators wanting to work in 2D. I would say discuss it with me first because you have to create all of the art assets for that. And this isn't a teach you how to use Toon Boom or teach you how to use Adobe Animate class. You would need to come to the project with that ready to go. So this project is due on Tiba. So let's figure out when this project is due. As many of you know, we have multiple time slots for our final. So this will be due at the final, okay, or the final time slot that we choose. Because this is a Tuesday, Thursday class, we start at 11:15. I haven't even looked at this yet. We get a Tuesday, Thursday, 11:15 to 2:05. Those are our 2 time slots. So we either get to do it at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, April 30th, or 1:20 p.m. on Thursday, May 2nd. So, I usually leave this up to a vote, but obviously the options are wake up really early in the morning and have 2 fewer days to do the project, or get 2 extra days to do the project and we come in after lunch and
Well, since you put it that way.
do it. What is the?
Thursday.
Yeah, okay. I'll open it up to commentary or comments. So the benefit of doing it early, you get to be done with school earlier. Right. Obviously, the downside to doing it early, you lose 2 days of work to make something really good. Right. So I usually just leave this up to a vote. Any conversation before we jump into a vote? How many of you are thinking Tuesday at 8 a.m.? How many of you are thinking Thursday at 1:20 p.m.? Thursday, May 2nd, 1:20 p.m. So let's go and put that in there. Oh, I have to edit HTML. This is how the back end of D2L looks if you've ever been curious. So it was Thursday. 1:20 3:20 p.m. to 3:20. Check. Yep, 1:20 to 3:20. Update. Now, I would strongly encourage you to put that in your calendar now. That's cool. So calendar, let me go ahead and put this in here. No, not calculator. So we are Thursday the 2nd at 1:20 p.m. And this is okay. We're getting stuff done, I tell you. So the next thing, just kind of a quick look at this. That's May 3rd? That's not right. It's May 2nd, isn't it? 2017. What? Okay, let's fix that. Apparently that's been that way all year. Okay, so that is correct, and that's when we will turn that in. All right, we will talk about what we're going to be doing for exercise 4 here in just a few minutes. But kind of quickly, I wanted to look at this. Obviously, today is the 11th, right? So we are right there. I'm going to be doing a lecture today, sort of showing you my workflow for lip sync animation. Next class period, I will hopefully be doing a lecture showing you sort of my overlapping action preview presentation. And then the next class period, so a week from today, I won't be here because we'll be going to the East Coast Game Conference. And yeah, so this class is yours during that time. You're welcome to come in here and work anyway, but I'm not gonna like send somebody up here to take attendance or anything like that. I trust that you will have enough information at that point to be working independently at your own level or at your own pace. After that, when we come back Tuesday, I will probably go ahead and have, like I have it listed as critique on the first section here. That will probably be when we do the critique on the discussion board, and that will give you one more day of class for asking questions on Thursday. So Tuesday and Thursday after I come back, both of those will pretty much be work days, except for we'll be doing the critique on the discussion board, sync sketch. And then I will be in my office all of finals week, most likely, but we don't have class until it's actually time for the final. So there's one more thing. This is crazy. I feel like I'm giving you kind of like 3 assignments today. One of them is going to be the exercise, and we'll look at that after the lecture. Remind me if I forget. One is the project 4, right? The other one is an opportunity to get some extra credit. So that week, actually, I think it's the 25th and the 26th. So the Thursday and Friday of the week before finals week is the last portfolio reviews, right? So if you didn't go the first time and take advantage of that, this is a chance to go. You only get one of those, so you can go to both of them. I encourage you to go to both of them. You get more than just the extra credit. But again, it's plus 1 point for whatever your lowest project grade is. Like I'll go in there, one of the categories, I'll just bump you up 1 of those points. And so just to, I know that you all probably looked at your grades. I try to grade pretty hard in this class just because this is a really competitive industry. But at the same time, I want to give you some chances to make some mistakes and to recover that. So I'm going to toss out one more potential extra credit opportunity that will allow me to bump your grade up by 1 point. And if you look at that on the spectrum of how much that bumps up your percentage grade, it's like by 4 points. So it's a pretty big bonus. On the day that we turn in our final, I would like you also to bring in a edit of your demo reel, right? So that's your call on what you think that is, right? Maybe you're in this class, but you are really enjoying effects animation more, and you're like, it's cool, Greg, I'm glad I learned some of this, but I'm not going to be a character animator. Maybe you're a modeler, and you're just curious about character animation and how that would affect your models. I want you to mix together something to bring in and just put it in there, and if you do that, and it's a reasonable edit of that, I'll give you another extra credit point on one of the project grades. So basically I'm offering like 8 extra credit points in your total percentage grade, just to do some stuff you probably should be doing anyway. The reason I do this is because there have been so many times that I've asked like people who are juniors, they're maybe even seniors who are not in portfolio yet. I've heard about some opportunity, and I'll be like, hey, I just heard about this thing. Can you give me your demo reel so we can, get you applied to it? And they've said, I don't have a demo reel. And I'm like, no, you have one. You just haven't put it together yet. Like if you have work done, you have a portfolio. But nowhere along the way are we forcing you to put that together before portfolio class, right? And that means you may be missing out on those opportunities that pop up like unexpectedly, right? Like we have a bunch of people who are going to ECGC in this trip. They're going to meet with people, and they're going to be, they'll have the opportunity to say, hey, would you check out my demo reel? Hey, are you hiring? Look at my demo reel. That stuff's going to start happening to you too, and you need to be able to say, here it is right now, not give me 2 days to put that together. So, yeah, Sean?
In portfolio review, there are a lot of people who are just using their art stations and sites as kind of their demo instead of demo reel.
If you're not doing animation, I probably would say that. Yeah, put the work that you have as what you would be presenting in there, and just give me a link to it. You just save it as a text file, and I'll be all right with that. But I would hope it's the thing that you're wanting to do, right? I set up this class to where if you do well in all the projects, then when you graduate or when you leave this class, you should have 7 animations, right? I tell people that like you can have a really good demo reel out of 3, 4, or even 5 animations, right? So that gives you a couple of them to throw away that you didn't like. So you should be able to build, if animation is what you want to do, you should be able to build a demo reel just out of the projects from this class. I would encourage you to revise those and stuff like that as well. As the last thing I would say is the last day in which I'll take revisions is that day right there when we come in for the final. Right? So just basically how the semester works. This will probably be one of the last finals I have this year, just because it's Thursday at like 3:30. How my semester usually works is as soon as I'm done with that, I go home, I start grading them. I have the grades in hopefully by that weekend, at the very latest by Monday, because that's when they're due. And then I shut down my computer and walk away from it for as long as I can. I know for a fact that after this semester I'm going to be pretty busy away from a computer for a while. So I tell you all that because go check your grades. Check the folders. Make sure that the thing you think you turned in is actually there. I know I haven't done all the exercise grades yet. But make sure that stuff is in there. Make sure you turned in the revision you think you turned in. Because what I'll do is I'll grade through all of that. And then once I've submitted, it's really hard to change a grade, right? And so if I get an email like a week later that's like, hey Marlo, I forgot to give you my picture from when I went to portfolio review for the extra credit. Could you put that in now? It's really like that's the date right there. So make sure I have all of that stuff by then. That includes all of the extra credit stuff. So if you forgot to put it in for the first portfolio review, that's fine. You still have time to do that, or you still have time to go to the second one. I would strongly encourage you, even if you went to the first one, possibly more so if you went to the first one, I would encourage you to come to the second one. Just so you get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of what happens there, right? Some people are going to show up who seem like they kind of took a beating in the first one. They're going to show up with some much improved work, and you're going to see like how everybody responds to that. You're going to see some stuff that possibly happens in the other direction. Some people who looked pretty good at midpoint didn't do very much and get torn to shreds, right? And you're going to see the people who didn't have much at midpoint and still don't have much, and like it's just the stuff that you need to see that's happening to somebody else before you're the person standing up there presenting, right? All right. I feel like I covered a lot already. I haven't even started teaching yet. Woo. Questions about any of this? So, all right then, let's go ahead and get started on a few things. Remind me to come back to exercise 3. So I have an animation already done here. Not done, I have a body animation. Now when I set these keyframes, I set it to the audio clip, but I actually have sort of taken that out of here so I can show you how to get audio into your Premiere file. So my audio clip it's not my favorite one, but there is one that I kind of liked from Superstore. Anybody watch Superstore? Yeah, it's funny. It's basically like a bunch of people working at a Walmart, a clone of Walmart, and sort of all of the quirky things that happen in retail. And so one of the characters is this guy named Glenn. This is his line.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
So he has a lot of great lines. I picked this one because it's short and good for a demo. You would possibly pick one a little longer or something like that. But so I need to get this into Maya so I can start animating to it. The first thing you want to make sure is that this is a 16-bit WAV file. Maya will not recognize an MP3. Maya won't recognize a 32-bit WAV file. So what are you going to do? The answer is pretty easy. You actually just take the audio file into Premiere and export it back out as a WAV file and just make sure that it's 16-bit. So if you have that, if you have a 16-bit WAV file, then you can actually just, I think this is the 16-bit one, you can just drag it right in here, release it, and it'll put it in there. Now if I right click and go to sound, you'll see some of them in there. I think it's this one right here. Let's see. Really not. Yeah, there we go. Now, something I've already, no, this isn't it then, because I already had that one in there. Must be that one. Yeah, it is. So when I drag it in there, it will immediately start it at frame 1, or possibly frame 0. So you'll see that I have other audio clips in there too. If I go to sound and go out here to my options box, there's a couple of things I can do. So let's say I wanted to start animating this. Yeah, because my first 100 frames I usually use as my character getting from bind pose into my first pose. So I want to start this on frame 100 for me, right? In fact, my keyframes are set from frame 100 to like 200. So what I'm going to do is set this silence for 100. And that means it's going to be silent for 100 frames. Actually, I'll probably do it for 101. It's going to be silent for 100 frames, and then on frame 101, it's going to start playing the audio.
Sorry, you said, why did you do that again? I'm sorry.
Because otherwise, it starts at, my animation that I've already done doesn't start until frame 100.
Why did you do that?
Okay.
Just so I can always have that as that's my bind pose right there on frame 1. And if I ever need to get my character back to the bind pose, I can just go copy that keyframe.
Oh.
So I just use that, like that's my method. You could also, if you want to do that, you could always save your bind pose at like -50 and start on frame 1. I always like giving myself some free space in the beginning. One of the other things you can do with that is like on frame 35, you could test out some poses on that frame, right? You're not sure if you're going to like that or not. You could do a test of it and see how it works. So you get like a little bit of like scratch space in there to play around.
Sometimes whenever I'm animating like the character's arms get all out of the way, is that a good time where you can copy and paste your bind pose and then do it? Okay.
So you can do that. I mean, in all honesty, a good rig, you should just be able to select that keyframe and zero it out, and it will put it back in the bind pose anyway. But just in case, I like to save it. Like sometimes stuff really messes up, and it's just nice to have that in there. So by typing in that silence at 101, that means now from frames. Actually, I think I had this animated from 100, not from 101. So let's just go ahead and say 100. Frames 100 to looks like about frame 200, right? Is my.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
So,
it's okay, I know.
So I feel like it's important to reiterate, this is going to get on your nerves. Like, you're going to hit play, you're going to listen to this. Like, some of you are already possibly getting annoyed by this guy's, like, nasally voice. I picked that for a reason. It's because that's our job. Eventually you don't notice it, right? And it becomes just part of the thing that you look at over and over and over again and hear it over and over again.
Can you imagine like becoming numb to Tom Hanks' voice?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
not being able to watch Forrest Gump again.
The interesting thing too, you will remember this line forever. Like maybe not this one, but whatever it is you're working on, you will remember it forever. I know that because forever I will remember Batia Kietikoski Dustika Hatbaratown, which is how Gandhi says, welcome to India. You're like, welcome here. I can't speak like Hindi at all, but I will remember those noises for the rest of my life. And in fact, if you pop up like half of the leaders I've animated, like I remember every syllable of what they have said. That was like 7 years ago. No, that was like 8 years ago when I animated Gandhi. Like, it will stick with you forever, right? And that's okay. You have to distance yourself from the media the same way that learning how like 3D works kind of ruined watching 3D animations for you a little bit. And you're like, oh, I know they did that, right? This will do the same thing for you. Like, I love Superstore, but like this becomes part of work to me now, right? Like that I am doing this thing for it. So you recognize that my character is not just standing there in a neutral pose saying words blandly. I have him.
How to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
So pretty much what I've animated is everything except for his face. That's not always how I work. Like sometimes I animate a little bit of his face while I'm posing him. But my workflow is that I usually at least get through my blocking pass, usually my blocking plus pass, before I really even do anything to the face. And then I animate the face almost as a reaction to that. Now part of the reason for that is because I'm going to be making my character make specific face shapes, right? These are called phonemes, right? So lots of audience participation today. Let's all say, make the S sound as you would make it with the word sheet. Right? Notice that it's kind of like you're shushing somebody, and your lips kind of pucker, right? The corners of your mouth sort of like go inward toward the center, right? And the reason for that is like it's got that SH sound, right? Now, versus, let's use the word seek, like you're looking for something. Make the S sound for that. Now, it's really not that much of a different sound, but you notice that your mouth does the opposite, right? It goes wide. So there's lots of these different sounds that you're going to make, and our mouths are physical instruments for making these noises, right? Like, think of it as a musical instrument. And in order to make a clarinet, make a C, you have to put your fingers in a very specific part, or a very specific spots. That's the same with your mouth. Those shapes, people call them different things. They're either phonemes or visemes. So visemes mean it's how the shape looks on your mouth. Phonemes mean it requires that to make this sound. And what is really more like, one of them is something that like auditory therapists would use. And it's how you would teach somebody if they had like a speech impediment, how to work them through not having a speech impediment, right? Some of it is just teaching them how to make that sound. So a good example of a sound that is very distinctive and necessary is the M, B, and P shape, right? Let's try made, right? Made, yeah. Now try saying that without letting your lips touch together. Right? You can try to fake it with your tongue or something, but really, to make that noise, you have to close your lips. Like, you have to put your lips together. Made, right?
Oh, made.
Huh?
What was the word?
Made.
I wasn't saying.
What were you saying?
Name.
Well, that would work. so there's some more examples though. Let's say name, right? To do that one, try doing that without letting your tongue touch the roof of your mouth. Right? These are things that your mouth is required to be able to, or your mouth is required to do in order to make these noises. So the M, B's, and P's I think are interesting because a lot of those are about closing off noise so you can release it sharply. Back, right? Back takes this like, but the noise comes from me releasing that, making it back, pop, pop. You get that at the end of it. And a lot of that is about holding back the noise or holding back the air just a little bit and releasing it at a very precise time. So there's a lot of noises that really are just, I opened my mouth and like made this guttural sound in the back of my throat, right? Ah, ooh, oh, right? And those have different shapes, right? The ah sound is more like corners are out, like it's much wider, versus the oh sound usually requires me to pucker my mouth just a little bit. And so all of these things are different visual shapes that you will see. Now, we can analyze those all day long. I have folders full of the visemes, right? The consonants are often like the C, the R, the S, the N are like kind of teethed together. Right? And that's how we would see them, even though like N and R, like N and have something different going on, right? Like your tongue is doing something on the inside of your mouth, but they still kind of look the same outwardly to the viewer. Yes?
But isn't R is more of a right?
So it is if you're starting with R, like ridiculous is almost like a like that. However, like try like ending in an R, Connor. You know, like that. So some of that can change, and some of it is like when and how you're going to say this.
That's so weird when you start thinking about it.
It all comes down to English is difficult and annoying.
The viseme for a sneeze. Yeah.
The Spanish R is kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, so recognize that the different things that make these noises in your mouth are on different spots in your face, right? Some of it is just your lips, right? Like the M's, the B's, the P's, that's like that's really dependent on the lips, which is the most forward-facing part of your mouth. Versus the R sound, like that rolling your R, like that's like something that's happening back here in the back of your throat. So you can do that with several different mouth shapes, because really the thing that's making the noise is in the back of your throat. And again, these don't live in isolation. Like I showed you earlier, that the S shape is very different depending on what letters are going to come next, right? Let's try me. So notice that your mouth, like the corners are kind of wide on that, right? Me. Now let's try like the noise a cow makes. Moo. Moo. So you move the corners of your mouth in, because you know that the next sound coming out is the oo shape, versus in me, the next sound coming out is the E shape. And so we kind of learn that when we're learning to talk. We know what letters are coming next, and so we conserve energy by trying to anticipate them. Amy, are you freezing to death underneath the vent? I am so sorry. You're welcome to hop over to another computer, but we've called about, like, we've put in a work order for it. Like, the temperature in this place is really messed up right now. Do it.
I always bring somebody when I
Yeah. Yeah, feel free to scoot around if you need to. I mean, you don't have to, but I can imagine, because that is like the coldest spot in the whole entire room. Okay, so I have a whole bunch of these. Actually, I can put them up there. If you're going cartoony, like again, we can see like there's no like perfectly designed list of visemes or phonemes, but there are a lot of consistent ones, right? And so I always love seeing these images because they're great to communicate it, but there is no like, you must have these 9 and your animation will be perfect, right? You will start to accumulate those. Also, the things to recognize is that different people say things in different ways, right? Everybody know what vocal fry is? No. Vocal fry is this this thing that's like people have noticed it happening a lot, and usually it's kind of like the new version of the like the Valley Girl speak from the 90s, like that was kind of like a nasally thing. It's that noise that people make in the back of their throat where they do this, like they crackle at the back of their throat. Recognize that means you're working your throat to make those noises more, and that means you probably move your lips less. So that voice, if that voice has a vocal fry to it, then that's going to have different face shapes, right? I had a person I knew. I went to Animation Mentor with her, and she turned in this animation, and the teacher was like, "What's going on with the way she's moving her mouth?" And it took a little while to figure it out, but what it was is she had shot reference of herself doing that audio clip, and she had braces. So when she was talking in a way to avoid, snagging her lips on her braces, right? It may be that somebody has an overbite or an underbite, or maybe somebody has a deeper voice, so they talk more from the back of their throat, right? Like whatever it is, everybody's going to say these things a little differently, and that's where the artistic interpretation comes in on your part. So the big thing is to recognize all of this. Now, there's another element. That's not a great example. That's more of the expressions. So there's another element to this, though, because despite all of that, sorry, I have to open up a new tab here. I kind of forget. Despite all of that, the majority of what we hear, what is communicated in a lip sync piece, comes from the jaw, right? how many of you remember in elementary school learning syllables, like how to do syllables? Did anybody have, like I learned this, the way you count syllables is you put your hand under your chin and you say the word and you feel how many times your jaw drops and hits your hand, right? So, Tennessee, right, as like 3, right? Or although I have a tendency to probably say it with 2. So that's a Tennessee word. Give me a second here. So that's true. Like the majority of what we see in when we're watching animation comes from the fact that our jaw is dropping up and down, right? And if you need any extra convincing of that, get down, 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 get down.
Jungle boogie down, jungle boogie, get it up. Jungle boogie down, jungle boogie, get it up. Jungle boogie up, jungle boogie up, jungle boogie down, jungle boogie. This is absurd. I refuse to jungle boogie. Whoa. I said I will not jungle boogie. No jungle boogie. I can't jungle boogie. Jungle boogie. Jungle boogie. I can't jungle boogie. Jungle boogie. Get down, 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 get down.
Hey, buddy. Hey, pal. We're closing. You have to leave.
What exactly is in a Mai Tai anyway?
I actually love Mai Tais. So you've watched the Muppets before. You've watched other puppets before. Like there is no ooh shape on a puppet, right? Like the majority of the noise coming out of their mouth is just this jaw flopping sound, right? So I'm going to show you 2 different ways of animating a lip sync piece. And I'm going to do that on the same shot. So the first half, I will sort of show you the jaw method, which is where you sort of move your character's jaw up and down the first pass, and then the second pass you go in and adjust for the lips, right? The second method is actually the one that I use, which is I create all of the visemes or the phonemes and I just dial those in one at a time. Now there is a extra plug-in that I'm going to install that allows me to do this a little quicker. This will help you if you're doing longer shots. I still encourage you to do it though. So let's go ahead and hop in here and get started. Character.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
So the first half I'm going to do with the dialing in the Vizines method, because I think that makes more sense to understand that. I've already kind of opened this one. I'm going to go ahead and save this one. Save scene as. We'll call it. Looks like I have to say this is a binary. We'll call this. So I'll remember 2019. And hit save, because what I'm going to have to do is install a plugin. So the plugin I'm going to go ahead and put on the network for you. It's called Studio Library. So I'm going to copy that, and I'll just go ahead and put that really quickly under Character Animation Resources. So it's right there. And then I'll go back to my folder. And you don't have to install this right now, but that's what I'm going to be doing next. So lip sync Malcolm. So I have this Studio Library. I'm going to 7-zip extract to Studio Library. And if you're at home doing this and you forget to take this with you, you can also look up Maya Pose Library, and even if you misspell it, it usually figures out what you're talking about. So it's this free tool you can download. It also gives you some installation information down. Wait, where's it at? Release notes. It's usually on here. Oh wait. How to install. Download and unzip that. Drag and drop the Python file under Maya viewport. Click the Studio Library to run the shelf. Okay. So let's give that a try. So I've installed it. Let's see if this works. If I go to Studio Library, which one did it say to drag? Install Pi. Don't actually see that one. Does anybody see that one? Yeah, this isn't how this worked for me before. This is interesting because I just installed this the other day and it did it differently. Maybe the one I installed was different. Let's try putting this one up on the network as well. That's cool if they've updated it. So DIGM classes, give it a second. Character animation, resources, show in folder, and I'll go ahead and copy that one over to my working folder. Let me delete that. Man, I don't know that I wanted to do that. Yeah. Sorry, give me a second. I may have just deleted all my... What's that called here? Is it the trash can? not undelete something? Ah, man. That'll be all right. Extract to studio library 241. And then, yeah, this is different. So from Maya, I would just drag this install here, and it gives me a button to my studio library. Okay. Now, I'm going to point to that folder where I am working from, which is here. And I had a bunch of poses saved, and I think there's a chance I just deleted them. So, oh well, I'll make them again.
Did you try the recycling?
Yeah, recycling, that's what it's called. Aww. Well, alright, it's not a big deal. I'll make them again. And that's part of the process for you anyway. I was just trying to make the file, or make the video go a little faster here for you. So I go ahead and select here, puts that there. So this is where my root location will be, and I'll go ahead and create a new folder in here, call this My Poses. Let's call it Greg's Poses. Select folder. And so now this is where it's going to be searching for my poses. Now, I don't have any yet, so let's go ahead and start making some. And so you can see how this works. So just sort of scoot this off to the side. And then the first thing that gets kind of annoying for people when they're animating is sort of the setup of this, like where, how to sort of look at our character and get all the stuff that we need to get. So I'll go with, let's see, not face controls. It's going to be the entire face. Let's see if I can find one that is just the mouth controls. No, looks like it's all part of face. So that's cool. I'll just choose all of the face controls right there. And I'm going to go ahead and make me a quick button for that so I can select them. And so, minimize this. I want to move the studio library over here just for a second while I set up my character. So usually what I do when I'm animating, I'll set up two panes side by side. And for this one, we can temporarily set it up as perspective, right? But what I really need is I need a camera that is always looking at my character's face, like this, right? And to do that, there's actually a little bit of a trick. If I go to Create, Cameras, Camera, and I go to this camera, which is camera 2, I'll go ahead and choose his face and hit F to kind of focus in a little bit. Right. Just going to get in like this, where I'm happy. And I'll go down here and find, or I'll go up here and find that camera I just made, which is camera 2. And I'll call that face cam. And what I usually like to do is to group that face cam to itself. Control G, we can call it face cam group. And then I grab the character's head control, which I think in this case is here. Nope, here. Goodness gracious, where is Malcolm's head control? That one. There we go. So I grab the character's head control, I hold down control and choose face group, and then I do constrain parent. So now, anywhere I go,
I know how to ride a bike.
I'm looking at Malcolm's face. What in the world happened there? Did I mess something up? Apparently. Hitting undo seems to fix it. And so now, no matter what happens, like when I'm playing this,
Okay, I know how to ride a bike.
my camera is going to follow this
I've
character's
been doing it
head.
since I was 19.
Now, of course, I always like being able to see both of these update at the same time. If we go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, under Preferences, I think it's, let's see, Time Slider, and we can say right here, Update View, and instead of Active, I choose All. And so now when I hit play, both of them will,
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
both of them will update at the same time. Okay. So let's just start making some noises with Malcolm. He has this,
It's okay,
so he says, it's okay. So that's important to recognize. He does not say, it is okay. He says, it's okay, right? Which doesn't sound like it's necessarily an English word, or a word you may even know. What it does sound like, though, like if we listen to that, that's the noise he makes. So if you were to write down all of his words, it's okay, I know how to ride a bike, right? You are going to get all different sounds. You're going to get, it is okay, I know how to ride a bike, right? He does not make all of those sounds. And so we're animating to the sounds he makes. And what he says at the beginning of it is, it's okay. So I'm going to animate, it's okay, right? How many of you, there was like this little there's so many elementary school like jokes that are sort of surrounded by this, but how many of you are familiar with alligator food? Familiar with alligator food? All right. I wonder if there's another generation version of that. Alligator food is sort of just like a third grader like silly thing where you're like, you mouth the word alligator food to somebody, and if you do that, and it looks like you're saying, I love you. What? I said alligator food. Right, yeah, that's why we don't tell those jokes anymore, because it's stupid, but it illustrates that alligator food and I love you look just alike, right? So we are animating the sound. Like, we are animating these shapes, not what we would read, what we would hear, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's okay, right? That's what he's going to say. To do that, I need to sort of get that ST sound to start with, and I'm going to start it the frame before he said it. Now, if I am already hearing that noise, it may be too late. A lot of people's lip sync, they animate it like after they hear, like if they drag it, they're like, so they're like, I just heard the O sound, so if I put that O on 08, that shape is going to happen after he's made it, right? So you got to find it and then like maybe go a little bit earlier. You'll kind of get the hang of this. What ends up happening with a lot of people on their first lip sync is they do the entire thing, they watch it, and like, it looks off. And if you grab all of your keys and scoot them back one frame, it suddenly doesn't look off again. I kind of auto-correct for that in my head just when I realize where I'm putting my keys. So let's go ahead and start that noise just a little bit before so we can get him into that. So grab the face. I've already got a frame on frame 1. I've got one on 104 now. I'm keying everything. I'll end up getting rid of the brow keys later. And I'm going to sort of start putting him into that face pose. I will go ahead and set my move to object space, and the reason for that is because if you notice, like that's going to allow me to move these controls inward and outward, sort of along the edge of his face. A couple other things you may notice in here. There's a couple of additional controls in here, such as a pucker control that allows them to kind of pucker in and out. Naso crease. I'm just going to add some of that. And if you look on his jaw control, which I think is it this? This? Oh, where is his jaw? It's that one. So if you look on his jaw control, you'll also see this lip seal option, which is going to allow you to sort of seal his lips. So you could do like this sort of thing if you needed to. I'm gonna undo that. Lots of little things you'll find in here. You'll also find like, I'm looking for, on the corner of the mouth, yeah, here, corner pinch in and out, right? And that's going to allow you to kind of pinch to get that ooh shape, right? So let's go ahead and get that shape. So I am grabbing the entire face. I got a keyframe set there. I'm on auto key, so I will go ahead and pinch that. I'm going to move them inward just a little bit, probably upward as well. And I'm looking over here. One of the reasons I like to animate the body first, which not everybody agrees with me, but one of the reasons I like to do that is because I now know, at least pretty closely, where I'm going to be able to see or what this shape is going to look like to my camera, right? So if his head was back more, that noise may be showing too much of his upper teeth, and I'd have to correct for it, right? If I already know roughly where his head's going to be, an M shape from profile, I maybe would have to push harder or push stronger than an M shape straight on. So let's start here. This looks like a pretty decent, maybe I'll push that lip up a little bit more and close his jaw just a little bit more. Yeah, so we're going to start getting. Now, I'm currently, in the version that I'm going to do, I'm not going to put too much personality on the mouth. I'm going to get some very generic looking poses. So this is my first pose for that noise, right? So it's also could probably stub in for the S shape just in general. So that's where this pose library comes in. I select all of my controls. I hit this plus sign. I choose pose, and then if I click here, it will take a screenshot of whatever screen I have selected. I can name this. We'll call this S1, right? And if I hit save, I did. Folder, create a new folder name. I'm sure face. Okay, that's great. Let's try that again. Pose S1. When I hit save, I get this pose. Now, I usually turn on the option to key this because now later, if I need to use this pose again, I can double click on here and it will apply that pose to the character's face. So let me show you by creating a second pose. This will make a little bit more sense. So the next one is the K, right? So that means we need the O and the A shape. Right there for the O. So the O is really just going to be, so let me go ahead and key everything really quick. Probably going to widen the mouth just a little bit. And I'm going to take out a little bit of that. There we go. So let's say that's it. Select all of the face. Over here. Add new pose. O1. And the reason I'm doing this with the numbers is because then I can add additional ones later. So I got that pose, and then I'll say, so I need the A, right? Because the jaw's moving up and down, so the shape is going to be a little bit closed. And that's possibly going to be something like what we have here. Like I kind of already have that pose somewhere in here. So I can just go there, and since I have the face selected, Pose, I'll say this is a consonant 1. And then the A, K, so wait, well, I haven't put that in there yet, right? So the K shape, you'll get to see how I can dial that in now. You'll also see down here, I can either double click it, I can hit apply, or I have this little slider. Let's say I just want partially to use that pose. I want 50% of that pose. I can click this slider, start to dial it in, and sort of find the percentage of that pose I want. So that's not bad. So that's the A shape. So let's go ahead and again, set a keyframe there. I will open the jaw pretty wide on this. I'll take away a lot of this pinch. And I am going to raise that up a little bit. This is probably a little big for the A that I need. But I also want to be able to use this later for other instances. And so I'm going to go big on this. I'm going to go ahead and save my pose, animation. And to help speed up the playblast, you can buy frame to a number group. Okay. I don't know what you're talking about, but no. I didn't mean to. Oh, it thinks I'm trying to, I apparently missed pose. There we go. You can save little animation clips as well. Oh, I lost my pose. Crap. It is. Okay. Now the cool thing is, even though I just saved that pose there, I can overwrite it with just like a smaller percentage of that pose, right? If I wanted to put in this consonant, take it back a little bit to that A, I can. So like this I that he's making there, I'll probably go ahead and use just a little bit more of the A and then just sort of scale that up. It's automatically setting the K, but I need to go to sort of an E shape in between there. So this consonant, can dial it in. And this is more of an E that he's making, so you can kind of see it here. So I'm going to make a new pose, but I'm going to change this one just a little bit first. So I'm going to make it a little bit more of an E sounding, I'm going to show some more of the upper teeth, a little less of the lower teeth. Let me push these up a little bit. And I think there's probably some other controls on this. Yeah, if I want to do, what's this peak? No, mid. I don't know what that's doing. Yeah, maybe something like that. Push it up just a little bit more. And I can save that as E1. And so little bits at a time, like I'm only a syllable or so into this, and I already have, or a couple of syllables into this, and I already have like a bunch of poses that I can start to reuse. So the more of these you create, the faster you get. And so you'll have a longer audio clip than this. I would say probably about 20% of your way through, you'll have most of the poses you need to animate this. So let's go ahead and keep dialing these in. I want to put a little bit more consonant into that. Maybe I'll do another E where the mouth is closed a little bit more. That. Select all the faces. So you can also do new pose from here. E2, save, and so I like that. So. So here we're getting to this no, right, which is almost like the N or the N sound, but kind of like that long consonant S shape, right? So I'll go ahead and use my consonant pose, and I'm going to make this more of like a wide S shape. There we go. Face. So we'll call this S2, or maybe I'll do S wide 1. There's that. So no. So we already have some O's in here, right? We got this O. Oh, everyone can see it. So you'll start to see that sometimes they don't work perfectly with every pose. So I'm going to make this one a little bit different. Like that. Now, maybe a little less pinch. So I can select the face and do like a O2. So if you watch this now,
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I know how.
so once I start getting these accumulated, you can start dialing in your animation much faster. So he goes. So he's got this how. I could use that same O there, and then maybe make it a little more narrow for the W shape, right? So that, close the mouth just a little bit. And I thought there was a pucker on these too, right? So that will make this our let's get the H sound there for the how, so I'll probably dial in a little bit of this. So you're starting to see that he's really like he's really pushing into that. So I kind of keep that a little bit more. And maybe even push it. Do that as W2. So ride. So here's the first B, like that B sounds. So a couple of things with the B's, the M's, and the P's, you need to hold them for 2 frames at least. So let's go ahead and put my consonant in there. And I'm going to really close the jaw, something like that. I'm going to push the impression that like that, and then maybe just a little bit of, there we go. So that's my MBP shape. So the cool thing about that is I need him to hold it for 2 frames. I would just kind of do like 90% of that frame again on the frame right before it. So maybe something like that. And then bike. All right, so it's going to go into, and then it needs to end on that sound, right? Trying to find the one I like, so maybe, yeah, I like that better. So if we watch that now.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I know how to ride a bike.
So little things you have to watch out for. Bike. You hear that K sound is going to cause your jaw to pop just a little bit. So I can choose his face. I'm just going to go ahead and pop his mouth open just a little bit more after that. Maybe the one before, I'll close it just a little bit by adding some MBP. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a second.
Been doing it since I was 19.
Let's just.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So if we watch the play blast of this, it's going to be just as annoying. There's the audio play blast. Let's try that again. Play blast, AVI with QuickTime, H.264. We'll do this from render settings, go to the full scale, save to file. Oh, sorry. I don't know why it didn't open, but let's go find it. It is.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So, play blast this often because it may look okay in your viewport, but you're going to see every frame once you play blasted it, and you'll be able to see like the stuff that's missing. And so to me, it's when he says, so, I don't feel like he goes to a puckered enough O. It's okay. So we can get that contrast between the okay. So I'm going to push that just a little bit. But there's one more thing that's kind of, you're not even going to notice it too much, but.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So one of the things that, to me, makes this better, or will make it better, so let's go ahead and get that. So right about there, I want that to go to O. And then I'll maybe make this a little later so I can put it right about there. I want to make some room in here. I don't ever really want to go to a pose in less than one frame. So I'm going to push this so right there. Maybe a little bit more of this one. Okay. So now if we watch it again.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So, there's a couple of things in here that we can do to make this better. But this is the method that I usually use. Now I got a whole bunch of extra keyframes on the brows and the eyes and all that stuff, by the way I was selecting it. I would just delete those because I animate the brows separately from the mouth. And in fact, if you think about the brows, like most of the emotions we get are a combination between your brows and your mouth, right? So if I look at some of these images we were looking at here earlier, this is from Scott McCloud's book. Like most of these are just like combinations between like different parts of your face. If you have a mix between different emotions, actually there may be a better example in here as well. Is it this one? Yeah. Is it? So if you look at the different, I don't know why I can't zoom in, but all right. What this is showing is, if you're showing one emotion on the lower part of your face, like joy, and then anger on the upper part of your face, actually say the way around, upper and lower, then you're getting a more nuanced emotion, right? Like think of smiling, right? Everybody just like try smiling, right? That doesn't always mean happy, right? What if like your eyebrows are up? Oh yeah, I really did need a crocheted kitten cozy. Like I don't like whatever. Like it's like oh yeah, like it's surprise happy, right? Like it's maybe not. Versus if you push your eyebrows down, kind of more of a devious, like angry expression. Now smile. It gets creepier, right? Like that's more of the villain, right? If being angry makes you happy, right? then you get this combination in order to make that emotion. So I usually animate the upper half of my face separately, and your brows don't do a whole lot. They do like big, like they shift between like 2 or 3, maybe 4 emotions throughout the entire animation, and they shift pretty quickly. Now your eyes are going to do quite a bit. You're going to blink a lot. Quick note on blinks. A blink goes down from open to closed in about 2 frames, usually stays closed for about 2 frames, and then reopens in about 3 frames. Eye darts, your eyes dart all around the room, all over its stuff. An eye dart usually takes about 2 frames to go from one point to another. Our eyes don't do this like slow drift across the room unless like there's something like wrong with this, right? Like that's sort of like you're like messed up on something, right? So that's some of the upper face stuff, but still with the lower face, I can still make this a little better. One of the things that I usually do is I go into the jaw controls in the graph editor, animation editor, and I make sure that whatever it is that's opening and closing it, which is usually this rotate X, right? I make sure that curve is just good, right? So there's little things like it goes flat there. So maybe with curves, or keys, I would go to the add key tool. Oh, that's not where I wanted that. Add it there, do overshoot. Maybe just holding in some areas so we get a little more easing in some areas. So like just making sure that my curve is strong here, right? So we get, that's not really that much of it.
Okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So one of the areas you may want to look at on that curve is when he pops out of bike. So 143 to 145 right here. Sometimes people will go in here, grab this curve, and break that tangent to make that happen quicker, right? You go in here on this B, break those tangents, and get that to pop out of there a little faster, right?
To ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
Now, one of the things that I like to do is, in terms of how our mouth moves, the corners of our mouth usually precede the rest of our mouth. So think about that like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. Yeah, I mean, precede is one of the worst. The way we move into the P shape, the corners of our mouth start moving in earlier than the rest of our mouth does on the P, right? So usually the corners of your mouth happen a little earlier. And so a quick trick you can try that loosens the mouth up just a little bit, since we're doing this very staunch pose-to-pose method, is if I grab the corners of the mouth and I make all of those keyframes happen one frame earlier. That usually it loosens up the lip sync just a little bit. So if I play blast that again.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So just doing that a little bit makes it a little stronger. Now, I haven't put any emotion on this yet. Personally, I do this in a separate layer, so I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Because an M, a B, a P in one expression is completely different. Like a happy M versus a sad M. I feel like that should be the name of a children's book or something. That's a different pose, right? And you can't make one for every emotion that your character could possibly get into. I will sometimes go in on top of that and layer an emotion pose on top of all of my lip sync, just in the animation layers. But there's one other way I want to show you how to animate lip sync, and this one's one that I've tried it a few times, I got some okay results. It really kind of depends sometimes on which rig you're using and how the rig is broken up. I think Malcolm, it works okay, but it would require you to create a completely different set of poses in that pose library. And what that's for is to create like a pose where you're driving the corners of the mouth in and out, the upper lips up and down, or just to not use the pose library at all. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and save this just in case anything crashes. So file, commit and save, continue, that's fine. Takes a minute to save. So the second half of this, he says,
Been doing it since I was 19.
Been doing it since I was 19, right? So how this one would work is more of a layered animation approach, or not using layers, but layering in one channel at a time, right? So remember how we maybe animated our first bouncing ball, we animated the translate Y, got that curve looking good, then we layered in the forward motion, and then we layered in the squash and stretch, and then we layered in the rotation. Well, we can do that here, and just like the Muppets, where the Muppets is opening and closing their jaw and nothing else, most of our sound is going to come from that. So, been doing it since I was 19, right? I'm just going to animate the jaw to that. So it starts with a B where his mouth is closed, so I would go ahead and get that kind of closed, right? So it goes back to an N there, but it has a little bit of a pop open in the middle of it. So again, I'm just animating the jaw. I may actually move that a little earlier. So I can pop it. That's the S sound, so it's going to be kind of closed. Another close. So. So, let's watch that half now.
Been doing this since I was 19. 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 Been doing this since I was 19.
Jaw motion. I can go there and sort of polish that curve. But then the next thing I would do is I would go in here and grab just these 4 controls here and do a pass where I'm editing them, right? And so maybe the quickest way of doing that is to make me a button just to grab those corners of the mouth, edit, clear all. Make a quick button for that. And so this is just going to be just the lips, right? And so you'll notice that they don't have any keyframes on them at all. So this is going to start to layer together. We got the jaw moving up and down, but really the corners of our mouth and our upper lips are going to do a little bit of a different set of things, right? And so let's see. It starts with this B sound, right? So I'm going to set a key there, and I'll make sure that my lips are touching through all this. Choose those, hit that. So bin. So I may not have to do too much, except on the lips. Maybe on this B, I would push the lips in just a little bit. So now I get this. So keyframes there. There's the O shape. So let's set a keyframe there. I need to put this pucker on here. Probably need to push the corners in. Need to get this pinch. So I can kind of adjust these one at a time. So that in sound right there. Probably need to get rid of some of that pucker in there now, though. So I'm going to stretch the corners just a little bit more on this S sound, maybe push them up, maybe a little higher on this part too. So that's a long stretch where it doesn't really change very much. He goes back to that was sound, so I can grab this here. It's a little early, or needs to be a little earlier. I feel like this section here needs a little bit more push. So maybe. So it's kind of like I did it in two different layers. From here, I could also go in and add the tongue as a layer. I can do all sorts of little things on the layers here, right? And so if I watch the entire animation now, oh no, it starts at 100, doesn't it? What was that? No. I just tore off my command line. Oh well. Playlist, okay.
Okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. Okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. Okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19.
So again, I don't want to bore you too much, so I'm not going to go through the rest of animating the eyebrows, but I will say, and the eyes, but I will say that what I have a tendency to do is like quick changes. So maybe he goes, I've been doing it since I was 19. Like really pushes his eyebrows up on the 19th. You want to be careful because you can lose an eyebrow motion in a quick head motion. So if your character's head's moving and you're doing a distinctive eyebrow change, maybe it's better to do that before the head motion or after the head motion. Right? The eye darts, you're going to animate those sort of darting around because our characters are constantly looking. Our eyes are constantly moving. And the blinks, you want to make sure your character blinks. Like, I know that's, I mean, I guess we could do a quick pass on it if we wanted to. Let's do a quick eyebrow pass just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. Grab those. Oh, where did it go? That's what I get for tearing off that. I have it over here. So that's my brows, and so I have all these keyframes on it from my earlier animation. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that, And so he goes. So maybe he's like trying to convince somebody, it's okay, I know how to ride a bike. And so we go to something like that. And I would make that change happen relatively quick myself. Maybe even starting somewhere a little lower. Like this. And maybe I have it something like this.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I know how to ride a bike.
So we got some motion in there. Maybe I would be kind of subtle with this. Like maybe from here to here, I would sort of let it drift down just a little bit. Maybe take out some of this so it doesn't look as sad. And the reason for that is so I could get this quick up right here. So I could do a...
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I...
So you see how that motion gets lost in bike when he raises his eyebrows there? That makes me think maybe I need to make that happen a little afterwards. And then I'll do like 19 right here. I have him push down into something a little more like he's trying to impress you maybe. So that's not going to read too much until we have that emotion on there. But let's see what we get there.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay,
So the blinks, I'll do a blink and show you sort of my method of doing a blink. Go ahead and wipe out all of this. Delete. And I usually want to start with an eye pose that is a little more maintainable. So if you'll notice as we go through here, like sometimes like here, you're seeing an awfully lot of the top of his eye, right? Above his iris or retina. So I can pull that down a little bit, and that's really more where I want his eyelids to be throughout this whole thing. So let's go ahead and delete that. Really, there's only like two poses you need. There needs to be open and there needs to be closed, right? So we have an open one. So I may put a blink like right here. So I'll go forward 2 frames, maybe 3 frames, and I'll go ahead and have the eyes blink down. The lower lids will come up about maybe a third of the way to meet them, like that. Oh, I forgot to set an open frame, didn't I? So we got keyframes on both of those. If I go back to 1 here, so I got my open key and my closed key. And then I need this open key again, like 3 frames later. And then this closed key, I would just have like one of the ways I try to get that is I use that tween machine to get like 90% of that, because you don't want it to just slam completely shut, but we'll do something like that. So we get a blink like this.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it.
Now the cool thing is once you have one of those, it's really easy to reuse that, right? I can just copy. Now you're going to blink in really quick head motions as well. If your head if you move across, like it's almost involuntary that you blink. So you may want to put one in like a quick head motion too.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay,
So I'll probably do it on
I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
Where it says bike and pulls his head
I
back.
know how to ride a bike.
So right there. So I'll go in here. these 4. And then I'll just extend the length of time that they're closed.
I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19.
And in terms of the eye darts, I can do a quick pass on that, but really, like, the first thing I do is I make sure my eyes are looking the places I want them to be. So I'll delete that. And maybe have him looking at the person he's talking to at first. So maybe it's here. So by the time he gets down to here, he's like thinking. So maybe I would do like exaggerate that a little bit more. Right. And then I would have him continuing to kind of look at, well, let me say, maybe I'll put that right up there. I continue him having to look at the person he's talking to up until that point. Right. So like these quick eye darts down. So maybe like right about here, would have him look back up. Of course, that's, you don't want to take your eye all the way outside of the thing there.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay.
So I can finish up the eyes, but it's not super exciting to watch. Is this making sense? Okay. The last thing I would do is sort of an emotion, maybe not the last thing, but at some point in this is where I would do an emotion pose. Some people do like an emotion layer. Some people do a blink layer as well, or like an eye dart layer, so they can just have that all on one. Eye darts are really like consistent, like you just constantly are doing like this at all times. And what some people will do is do like 3 seconds of eye darts and then copy and paste those. And that way they're moving relative to whatever your eye position is this little bitty subtle shifts. What I'm going to do instead, or what I'm going to do here, just to kind of show you how this works, my animation layers, we've already talked about how these work. I'll choose the entire face, and I'll create a new layer. And I'll call this motion layer. Now, on this emotion layer, I'll go ahead and start an establishing pose here. And for me, like, maybe I want the character to be happy through the whole thing, right? So I can just raise this a little bit and see what that looks like.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay.
Now I may mess up a few little things on the lip sync, and I can change around like some of those things. The other elements is I could just use this layer to have a single frame or a single section emotional shift, right? Like let's say he's happy during the first half and then thoughtful during the second half. Like he's like, I'm doing it since I was 19, Dad. You know, like he's like really, defiant almost, right? So right about here, I could shift to a different emotion. To something a little bit more maybe, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. There's a, not the peak, maybe it's this. Something like that. A little bit of a swagger to it, right? So let's see what that does. And just have that happen over a few frames, right?
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride.
And you can even push emotions in very subtle spot, like. like right here, I think I would really want to push the 19, like really like push that like, yeah, like that element to it, right? So again, choosing the face, I kind of hold it, actually to right there. Actually feel like that gets a little too much at spots. So let's try that. I'm going to key that whole face.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay,
Okay, it's making sense? All right, I know it's annoying. I know you've heard that line plenty, but let's watch it in a play blast just so we can see if there's anything I missed. I mean, obviously I'd still want to do a little bit more work on the eyes and the eye darts, but so there's multiple different ways of working with this. I'm not going to force you to work in any specific way that's uncomfortable for you. That's one of the reasons I try to show you a couple of ways. I mentioned the Muppet jaw flap method to some students in the past, because usually I would just teach them my method. And they tried it and they really liked it. And then the other half of the class really didn't. So everybody works differently. This is sort of what we
It's
get.
okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. So
Now, one last little comment I want to make about this. Recognize that what he is saying out loud isn't always what he's really saying, right? One of the things that you can do is you can analyze this audio based off of the sound that you're making, right? And that's how you get good lip sync. But when we get this emotion, one of the ways we get good emotion is by analyzing what he really means. We call that the subtext of the line, right? And so, like in this case, he's got some bravado to that second part of it. Even though that's not, I mean, that's kind of the funny part. He's like, hey, I've been riding a bike since I was 19. Like, you're supposed to be impressed by that, right? And the subtext of that might be like, yeah, I'm pretty experienced, right? Whatever the thing he's really saying, that's the emotion that you should be animating. You shouldn't be animating just the emotion that is culturally or societally tied to that line. Like, if somebody was like, sure, go on to the movies without me, right? Like, that's not sure, go on to the movies without me, right? Like, you're animating the subtext of that emotion, right? And really the subtext of that whole line is like, I really wish I could go, right? That's the emotion that you're animating. And like you have to take that into consideration on both the way your character is or acting with their body and their face. So, questions on any of this? Comments? Okay. All right. One last thing, and then I'm going to shut up. The rest of the class is yours. Exercise 4. Yep. So you all already have. Let's go ahead and go here. You all already have your audio clips hopefully started to pick out. And in the exercise brief, I'm just going to go ahead and release this as published. And that way when we go look at it, we can see. What I want you to be analyzing is the sound in your audio. So you have 3 lines. I want you to get a camera of some sort. It's fine if it's your phone, whatever. And I want you to get a sock. And I want you to put that sock on your hand. And I want you to shoot some video reference. So, this is like using a sock, your 3 audio clips, it's playing out loud, film your hand doing those jaw motions, right? Because I want you to physically feel them. I want you to see that when your character makes that sound, that jaw has to drop, right? That noise can't come out of your mouth without your jaw dropping up and down. This is less of something you might actually, you may use this when you're doing your animation, but you're going to have to get those 3 audio clips anyway. So you're going to get those, and then you're going to film yourself doing some lip sync with a sock puppet. Now, if you happen to own a real puppet, that's completely okay as well, right? If you want to build a puppet for this, that would be awesome too. So this is not due on April the 11th because that's today. This will be due on April the 16th. So we'll change that, edit. Okay. Now, last little note. This is actually usually really fun. What we'll try to do next class period is during a section of that time, we're going to help you pick out your audio. I think we may be cutting it kind of. Oh, I have another idea. Maybe we'll be helping you pick out that audio. I want some input from people, because what you really need to have is some new eyes on it, or some new ears on it, I guess, to recognize whether it is something you should be animating, or something that is not communicating, right? It may be really funny to you, but nobody else is getting it because they don't understand the context. Whatever. There's reasons why some clips make more sense. I will also say, classic, over-quoted clips are not always great because everybody's already done those, right? If you have Monty Python, I love Monty Python, but I've seen what's the one? There's so many Monty Python animations I've seen in my life, and so is everybody else. So if you're going to find one of those lines that nobody overquotes, right? I don't want to see the swallow or whatever it is, the bird line, because that's only funny because Monty Python is pulling it off, right? So it's fine if you want to get those, but find something that's not a bumper sticker already, right? But you're going to bring those in, we're going to look at them, we're going to kind of help you get some ideas about it. I'm trying to use class time wisely, and watching those sometimes takes a little bit of time, so that's why I kind of backpedal a little bit. I'm not 100% sure we're going to use all of class time to do that. We may do that through a discussion board or something like that. I think that would be a neat way of getting you some feedback on that. Okay. Questions on any of this? Okay. For the exercise? It's kind of in your ballpark there. So if you have some ideas, if you're doing a new shot, you can do reference. You can do the film analysis. Has anybody done any of those yet?
Not yet.
The frame by frame animation things, from YouTube or from Facebook. Do your own version of one of those to study a piece. There's a couple of other pieces, and you can kind of lob some ideas at me as well if you have something you think would be a good one. Yeah.
Since mine's a little bit different with the dragon, what I'm doing, I'm kind of recording my own audio.
You're what now?
Recording my own audio.
Okay.
So it could pantomime mine. I'll do the sock puppet too.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would work.
Yeah,
you're more than welcome to do the sock puppet.
I already have 2 of the audios. The third one I want to talk to you about. I have two ideas, I'm like, yeah, go with it.
Okay.
Or third idea.
Yeah, and you're welcome to use you're welcome to do the sock puppet one, even if you're not doing a lip sync for this one, just as a study for that as well. Other questions? Okay. I will sort of look over all of your shoulders if you have a question, but there's one more thing I need you to do. Anybody want to guess?
SAS.
SAIs! Yay! You're so good at this game. So I'm going to go outside for about 15 minutes. It is currently 1:34. You should have gotten an email about SAIs. Again, I want to reiterate, like, if you have a teacher that you're just having a terrible time with, these are impactful. Like, these are some of the things that people review in order to make decisions like that. These are important elements. In fact, let me go ahead and stop this video recording too. That way you can do these in private.